a world in which everyone wins. While this is definitely outside of all of our grasps to some degree or another, and in that sense may be a questionable mission statement where everyone wins, I think that within our sphere of influence, it is certainly a healthy goal to imagine and then do what we can to embody a reality in which more people win in more ways. And I think that one of the first and most healthy changes within HI and within this dynamic with the HI facilitators is a protocol, a change in protocol that played out in this situation with Peter Sandhill and the HI facilitators, in which HI never stated what their win was to this day, and never asked me what my win was. And I think it's, regardless of how grandiose it may be, and regardless of how limited the facilitator's commitment may be to a world in which everyone wins, let alone a world in which you and I win, it is a positive direction to move towards win-win. And so what I'd like to do in this exploration here is lay out my vision, my imagination, which are things both that I've reflected on, but also as someone who learns and becomes and designs through expressing and communicating. This is also a process for me of learning and stretching how many possible wins there can be. And so my first win around all of this is for HI to invite its team, and possibly participants, but certainly its team, to develop a protocol that is a clear, official HI protocol that not just espouses, not just talks about winning, but is actually a protocol that HI believes has the highest chance of probability of ensuring that two or more groups embodying that protocol win. Because it's a little bit like a chemical company saying that we are committed to having a pure strain of healthy chemicals coming out of our chemical factory, and we have no policies and procedures in place in which to do that. The most trusting person in the world would be skeptical of the outcome of such a commitment. And so a good protocol works in the worst case scenario. Well, what's the worst case scenario in our country when you have severe traumatic conflict, violence, being in court, and then violence, suicide, murder, death, being in court? These are the worst case scenarios. Public relations, explosions, which are not always healthy on either side. This is what this country has to deal with. This is what HI has to deal with. This is what a high participant needs to deal with in this world. So what is a protocol? And so to say that we're committed to creating a world in which everyone wins, but we're not committed enough to clarify, research, suggest, and commit to using a protocol that works at least most of the time, is a very weak commitment. And so that's the first step. And I think a good test of that protocol would be, could it work between the facilitators and myself? Because a protocol of committing to a world in which everyone wins that does not work for a, Jason has referred to HI as a business in one of the recent circles where I met him for people who made donations to HI Global. Jason's reference to HI was that it's a business, and you cannot alienate, you cannot use a protocol that in the business paradigm devastates and destroys trust and relationship with your top 5% of clientele. So it doesn't get that much better in terms of the high client than a participant who hires 3 high facilitators for private work, who recommends HI in 4 different books that he's authored, who fills 140 workshops, who donates more than $3,000 towards Angel Fund and different people so people can go to workshops, who attends 30 workshops, who talks highly of HI in many ways, who practices an enormous amount of the material in the HI workshops, who's sharing that book, who's sharing HI protocol and things, learned in books around the world, and who's, written 5 books on relationship dynamics, who's been actively engaged for 10 years in the community. That's in the top 5% of HI participants, or the HI client. If I can choose between someone who comes to an event and never comes back and says it's terrible, or someone who does all their stuff and engages, and then how can you have a more active citizen within HI than someone who actively analyzes on the part of the team, the participant, and the facilitators, writes letters, stands up for ethics, within the community, doesn't lie, doesn't cheat, brings in awareness about, other mental and emotional health issues. And, if the protocol cannot work with someone like that, how's it going to work with someone who has a hard time putting things into words? How's it going to work with someone that doesn't understand basic psychology? So in other words, this protocol has got to be brilliant. And if the current HI protocol failed here, it's going to fail 60 to 80% of the time. And if it doesn't work when there's facilitator negligence, and facilitator negligence is a part. I mean, it's absurd and insane to, deify, whether it's the Catholic Church deifying its, and trying to ostracize and mask up its, its stuff. It's human. Any organization, that's one of my eye-openers as I've talked with different people, is like I've heard from people again and again and again. Well, that doesn't surprise me. I was in a community where the leader cheated and did this and that and the other. I was in a spiritual thing where the teacher did this and this and the other. I was in this. That just seems to be the way of teachers and spiritual communities and anything with the world loving it, and that's the way of businesses and this and that and the other. And so this is actually very normal in our level of cultural development. It's very normal to be dishonest. It's very normal to be self-absorbed. It's very normal to put money ahead of other people's well-being in this culture that deifies money far more than it deifies well-being. This is a sick culture. We're in it. And so a protocol in which everyone wins, or at least the high facilitators and I win, is a protocol that addresses these realities. So that would be a good test, and a good flunk is if a top, if the top 5% of your clientele think you're full of shit, can't win, experience major damage on all levels, and then on the other side, if that high is saying the same thing, they're locked up in conflict, internal conflict, and politicking, and this and that and the other, and panic and legalize. So we have an organization that doesn't have that protocol. So my first win is, let's carry that commitment to everyone winning to at least the first step, to a commitment to creating, testing, refining, and applying a protocol on all levels of the organization when there is not a win. In other words, that anyone at any level, from participant to team member to facilitator, who's feeling that high isn't winning, that the facilitator isn't winning, that the team isn't winning, that the participant isn't winning, that the public isn't winning, that someone's not winning, that they can say, I'm not winning here. And that initiates an agreed upon protocol. That actually part of winning, because you have to assume, just look at this, you have to assume that things will come up in which people do not feel like they're winning. And I think the first step of winning is actually to have some agreement. This is what we do when you're not winning. Is that a win for you? Well, if that's not a win for you, in other words, if it's clear and explicit that we follow this path because this is the best technology we know to win, and that doesn't work for you, well then you're screwed to begin with, because you've got an X% probability field that you're going to run into a situation in which you're not going to feel like you're winning. And like I had this with girlfriends, because I looked at the probability field in this country of how many relationships end for reasons other than death, before death. Like, how many people have I known in my life? How many people have this sample of friends known in their whole life? Number one. And how many of those people are still in their lives in any active way? Sending the Merry Christmas, love so-and-so once a year. That's not a relationship. That's dead long ago. How many of these people are still in the life? What is the statistic? 90% of all relationships, teachers, students, colleagues, friends, lovers, have effectively ended prior to death for reasons other than death. So that means there's a 90% chance that the little relationship we're having here is going to be dead before you or I die. So that brings in the obvious question, is it going to be a good ending? Is it going to end well? And with all the horror stories, you know, he texted me, she did this, she cheated on me, he lied to me, he got into a fight just because he wanted to end, because he didn't know how. The odds aren't very good that it's going to be a great ending. Like, how many relationships end great? And in the general statistic, it's probably around 10%. About 1 in 10 relationships end great. Maybe it's 5, 1 in 5, maybe it's 1 in 2. But somewhere in there, somewhere in 1 in 2 to 1 in 10. Why? Well, the biggest thing is we're not taught how to end. I mean, why would we expect to fly a 747 if we're not taught on it? I mean, 747s don't have feelings, they don't have religious beliefs and stuff like that. They're easy. Just push a few buttons, you master the thing. They behave as they're told. I mean, 747s don't argue with you. No, I'm not going to do that. I never do that on a Sunday. No, they're easy. People are hard. So how are you going to end well without learning? You study 747s for 6 years. Because money is important in this world, and we can't have you crashing a $200 million jet. I mean, you can crash people's heart right and left, and, you know, that's just people's hearts, so we don't care about that. But, you know, no business owner is going to invest $1 billion in a fleet of planes that are crashing at the rate of human relationships. So we actually train people to fly planes, even though they're simpler than people, and we don't train people to fly relationships. And we certainly don't train them to end, because that's negative. Is it negative? Is it negative to say that the reality is that 90% of all relationships end, and yet a good 50% of them end very painfully because there's no training, which means that there's a roughly 40% chance, statistically, that unless we inject some awareness, some skill, some commitment, that your and my relationship is going to end in a dissatisfying to very painful way. Is that okay with us? Do we matter? Do our feelings matter? Do our thoughts, do our values, do our hearts matter? I think they do, and so I've always tried to create ending agreements at the beginning. So let's say we get into this relationship, which feels great and all that. If 2 years down the road I'm not growing with you, if 3 years down the road you're bored, and you feel you can increase your happiness, you can be the person you want to be in another location or with someone else. How are you committed to ending with me? How do you want to end with me? How do you want me to end with you? Now, what I've learned is that the best people to end with are the people excited by this question. That's a great question. Yeah, I've had like 10, 15 miserable endings, and something's wrong there. I mean, I don't want to do that again. You seem like a nice person. I don't want to hurt you that way. That's a great question. Do you have any experience with that? Yeah, well, I do. I've had these ending agreements with this person and this person, and it's like, is there any way you'd improve on that? Can we agree right now that if you end with me, you agree to follow this protocol? Do it consciously, do it cleanly, do it for good reasons. Tell me what they are. And then we gracefully separate. Can you agree to do that for me? And what would you like me to agree to do for you? Well, my ending ratio with this approach, which is very effective, is that in 50% of the cases, ending in the protocol of an ending has been some of the most beautiful days of the whole relationship. Because I'm not sure if you're aware of that, but attachment and lust are selfish loves. Being loving, doing what the other person needs to feel supported, loved, and healthy, that's being loving. That's love. That's the selfless love, to be of service in the eyes of the other. And so when someone does that, it's sometimes some of the most purest and honest love of the whole relationship. People who are attached are often willing to lie to themselves and others to maintain the attachment, to justify the attachment, to protect the attachment. Oh, I couldn't tell him that because he might leave me if he knew that about me, so I've got to hide this. He wouldn't love this part of me, so let's have her hide in the background and say, no, everything's fine. But when you have the courage to say, I am now ready to leave, I've stopped growing in this context and whatever, I care and respect you enough to tell you, to be together and hold each other and talk about the process. Well, these hidden parts, they sometimes come out. They're beautiful. They're so beautiful. The truth is always more beautiful. The full truth. Because you have layers of truth. You have the veneer, I love you, everything's wonderful, no, none of the denial. And you have the second wave of truth, which is, I'm terrified, I'm scared, I'm lonely, I don't know what I'm doing here, I hate you about this, I'm angry about that, And then you have the deeper truth, which is like, despite all of this, despite this, abuse as a child, this despair, this, that, I still care about you. I still do my best. And then you see the miracle of the human spirit, that in this toxic environment, downloaded with these toxic programs, it's still coming through. It's like, wow, it's still making it into this dark place. And that gives hope, So the deeper truth is beautiful. So the protocol has to include not just win-win, but in Stephen Covey's word, win-win or no deal. That's part of the win-win. It's like to have a way of gracefully disengaging. So that's the first thing I'd like to see with High. And I'd like to see that it works. And I'd like to see a commitment to data. And that leads me into the next win that I would like to see. I would like to see an app. I would like to see an app that the commitment to everyone wins at least extends in real terms, not hyperbole, to a commitment that people in our community are visible in the degree that they are winning and losing in different areas, are visible in the reasons, and that the protocols that High is teaching are visible in their reasons and practice within the community. I was dating, one of my best friends and relationships of all time, probably the person who has been one of two people who's known me more than anyone else has known me in this world. And we were not sexual lovers. We were sensual lovers. We held each other almost every night for years without having sex, without having, arousals around each other. It's a very deep and tender intimacy. that was much deeper than any of our lover relationships. I would meet other women that wanted to have sex with me, but didn't want the kind of intimacy, that didn't want the kind of tenderness that this woman did. And so we were sexually open, but were each other's primary partners, emotionally, sensually, in our growth. I mean, they're just explosions of mutual growth and benefit there. And a man wanted to be her partner sexually, and I encouraged her to ask him what his 100% was, and he was a high guy, and she was a high woman, meaning I met them both at high, and he outlined it all. And I looked at it and I asked her, I said, it doesn't look like he's going to get his 100% with you, not even close. You can give him about 20% of his 100%. That seems like a disappointment for him. And it's not clear that it's good for us. So I'd explain that and say, we can't support your 100%, so it's not a good fit. Well, he said, well, so much for my 100%. It's like, fuck that. I just like being around you, da-da-da-da-da. You asked me what the 100% is, and just because your 100%, the 100% was a big gap, now you don't want to be in a relationship with me. I feel like telling you my 100% was a loss. So that was his experience of asking for his 100%. But what's the data? I asked for my 100% with high and got 20% of that. It was so miserable that there wasn't any dialogue or anything like. It's a complete loss. And so is that a working protocol? Is this, is that? So some things may be ranking very high, and I think the community deserves to get that data directly and unfiltered from the community. To comp it with another thing, in level 2, I learned the art of appreciation. I learned that I was much more generous appreciating other people when I appreciated myself. So I have written more than 2,000 appreciations to myself. And I would consider that highly effective because I've given more than 1,000 appreciations to other people. And it's probably close to 5,000, but conservatively 1,000. And that's 10 times more than I would have done otherwise. And while I've had maybe 10% backlash, 10% of people have said, that seems forced. What do you mean? Would I like an appreciation? I just want it to come naturally. It's like, well, that is natural. I mean, I want to know if you would enjoy it. If you wouldn't, if you're busy, I mean, I'm not going to do it. I'm not. Do you want me to grope you if it feels natural, or do you want me to ask? Would you like this? Well, no, I don't want you to. But they don't get it. So fine, 10% don't get it. But there's been another 10% that says this is the most beautiful thing in my whole life. I love it. I love it. Look at the way our relationship's growing. I love it. And then most people, I'd say there's another 15, 20% that say, well, I'll give it a try. I'm not sure. I've never done this before. And they grow into it and they get excited. And then pretty soon it's like, oh, Dane, you want to probably close the call with appreciations. Yes, I would. Let's do at least 3. Let's take turns. It's the highlight of the whole call. You can't. So that's a good one. But data that's looking at the protocols and exercises and things taught in these wonderful workshops that actually are working and not working, and the amount of judgments and what they are that come to you and how you can protect yourself from that. Because one of the biggest blind spots that I've noticed is there in the culture is that if I ask for what I want, a noticeable percentage of people immediately assume that I'm not interested in what they want, when in fact, I've asked so many people what they want that they say they don't know, And so I'm like, well, let's get the ball rolling. I'll demonstrate, and then let's see if you can come back and balance, because of course we need balance. And rather than just go through the whole motions of what do you want, I don't know, what do you want? I just say, I'd like to share what I want. How does that feel? And then would you share what you want? But just before I open my mouth, it's like, well, that's very selfish. You don't care about me. No, I care about you enough to know that statistically you're not going to answer this question. And so I'm just saving us a little time. So what works? So an app to practice these protocols, to seek help. So I've gone very, very deep into pain, into pattern analysis, into shame, into terror, into trauma, into loneliness, into insanity, into isolation in this dance with the high facilitators. Because there's few things worse than being betrayed by your leaders, being abandoned, knowing you're not welcome, knowing you're not wanted, knowing your issues are not welcome and wanted, being blamed and shamed for it, and losing your whole community. The high facilitator protocol ended with them unilaterally, without my breaking a single agreement online, terminating me from all web services. It's like, that's really what you want to go down doing? Like, that's the end? If you can't resolve something ethically because you've invested no energy in creating a protocol or educating anyone about it, you're just going to let your fear put a participant in greater risk to protect your secret? Is that really the best that an organization committed to everyone winning can do? It's like, oh, that's painful. It's, give me a break. We need organizations that actually are committed, and committed enough to do these protocols. And so High actually has a bit of a history. If you go online and look at a few people where High has broken its commitment and gone out of alignment with its integrity, and basically pushed people off, or said you can come back as long as you don't talk about this, as opposed to facing them. And that's one of the reasons I'm bypassing that, with this moment here, is it's not a good protocol for the community. It may be convenient for a few facilitators that are too ashamed to own their stuff and don't have the skill and the courage to bring it out. But they've got to learn that, or they shouldn't be in that position. Anyone who reaches a point in leadership where they have to face a choice of what's good for the people they lead and what's good for their own ego, and who realizes they cannot do what is best for the community, is ethically bound to step down and to get help, one way or another. Because leadership is not a title, it's a position of service. It's a position of service, and anyone who is being of service is in that position. And the more authority that is supported and granted to an individual that is committed to serving the community in a given area where service is needed, the greater the win, the greater the well-being for all concerned, the more High actually does its mission statement. And so that's really the line. In any situation, when there is a tension between the expediency of the leader and what is good for the community entrusted with leadership, the question is always the same. Do I want and can I serve here? Or do I want to protect myself, my position, whatever? If you can't answer that, if you don't know, or if you choose self, you are hurting everyone, including yourself, by occupying the position. The community suffers. So we need apps. We need an app in which we actually start to take a commitment to each other's growth, development, and well-being. And the good news is, I'm working on an app right now called Wellbeing. The good news is it can deliver far more value than it costs. And it is a new science that is only available to us today. For less than $11,000, the value a high participant receives from the workshops, from being associated with high, can go up exponentially. It's possible. Now, of course, it's all in execution. It's all in execution, but it's possible. It's possible. And 60,000 people who have taken the high workshops, if they each donated $1, that's $60,000. It is so easy for people to get hundreds and thousands of dollars worth of value for that dollar, whether it's donated, regardless. So this is something that needs to be explored. Another very important area is we are desperately in need of data in the social sciences. And gathering the data is what's really expensive. So an app can anonymously source anthropologists and universities with data, raw data, without identity. But, this is a male, this is a woman, this is a 58-year-old woman who's had these experiences, who's experiencing these things, who has this sexual history. You ever get tired of the safe sex conversation? This is what I want to do, this is how I want to protect, this was my first experience here, this was my thing, I've been lovers with 50 high participants. That's 50 safe sex conversations. How about entering it once in an app? This is my status. These are my safe sex practices. This is my last STD results. Would you like to explore a relationship? Would you like to exchange safe sex conversations? Yes, I would. And just press a button, submit, and you both get each other's safe sex stuff. Now, what if that's not what actually happens? What if an individual cannot be trusted to do the safe sex things? They said, we'll wear a condom, we'll do this and that and the other. The woman's having sex and realizes there's no condom on. She was just lied to. How about saying, how about real intimacy? I could not trust this person to do what they said. Or this person does in all areas. This person does in all areas but this area. This person has a secret they bring out on the third date after there's attachment, and then it's divided, and not with the goal of attacking people, because the reason these things happen, tend to be survival oriented. I do PTSD posts when I'm dating. I have PTSD. This is what it means. And nobody wants to respond. Or one or two people want to respond. So it's maddening. Because I know that before I said that, before I knew that I had PTSD, I just knew traits, but I didn't know there was a label. I didn't know what the label was. I didn't put the pattern together because no one supported me in that. No one had an issue with that. I've had some very enthusiastic partners wanting to marry me, and they weren't good for my PTSD. Yeah, I'd say like 7 people were really enthusiastic to marry me, but couldn't help me cope with these fragile parts of myself, and I couldn't, that those parts could get reactive and get worse, and so it wouldn't be good for either one of us. But you put it into words. I have PTSD. I'd like to find someone who can do this and not this and that, and that is like nobody even wants to meet to have their own personal experience. So then that's a problem within the community itself, like the stereotyping and biasing. That's obviously not accurate, because if people just meet me, they're very interested. And what they're meeting is me. They're not meeting a label, they're meeting me. So they should be just as they should be open to meeting. But so there's issues. So we need to know what the issues are in the community. What's maddening? We preach 100% in transparency, and yet when people are 100% transparent, they're being judged and punished. Well, that's not good. So an app. I'm not going to go into it fully here, but understand that there's more than 1 hour's worth of benefits that I've analyzed and looked into, from efficiencies to bringing the buddy experience outside the workshop, so your buddy can actually support you in your first 2 weeks of bringing your first workshop back into home, rather than just the crash that is legend within high. You get high, and then you crash. Well, an app where part of the joining of the group is on your phone. You join your small group. You have your 5 people. And whether it's Wi-Fi access or 3G, what goes on in your small group and the well-being levels and needs on the app gets updated. Your buddy, you can take that out of the workshop. You can say, this is how I need support, this is how I can support. This is my pain level, this is my joy level, this is what I'm growing, this is where I'm stuck. Can anyone help? This is fun. It's fun helping. An app can facilitate helping, being of service, listing needs, listing resources, sharing news, forming small groups, growing together, filling out questionnaires together, doing exercises together, and submitting data. An app can track, for an average participant, which the app can calculate, what's the curve after a workshop? What happens currently in the impact on a person's life? So what happens to pain and excitement, enjoyment, loneliness, etc. as someone takes a high workshop afterwards, at week 1, at week 2, week 3? An app can alert one, can send you a weekly reminder, well-being emotionally, well-being mentally, well-being physically, well-being financially, 1 to 10, 1 to 10, 1 to 10, 1 to 10, submit. Next week, well-being, etc., 1 to 10, and can track what happens in the aftermath. Where are people most vulnerable? What help do they need? If their numbers are dropping, there can be a question. What would you need right now for your well-being to go up? Oh, week number 3, 80% of our people need a workshop reunion. Okay, we're going to do it. You cannot have a commitment to everyone winning when you don't know where they're hurting, when you're not asking, so of course you don't know, you're not responding. Winning begins with data gathering, continues with data analysis, and concludes with effective prescription, effective response and action, followed by new data analysis. Did this reunion actually help your well-being? You all said it would. How's your well-being after the reunion? 1 to 10 is going up. Okay, it's working. Anything we could do to do better? Okay. This needs to be available as a transparent resource. 360 transparency in a lot of different areas. It's, I'm designing an app right now where I've got a bid for $400. $400. My goal with the app, give it away to as many people as possible worldwide. Apps are a potent technology for well-being. They're not being developed. They're not being utilized, so not as many people are winning at high. Number one, a protocol of win-win that works. Number two, an app that dramatically increases the win and the data gathering for the high organization and its participants. Number three, an app that gathers anthropological data that can support studies about well-being that can start becoming public policy. So these are the first three wins. Number four, trauma integrated into the app. One, a questionnaire that, because it's a probability field, like, the Adverse Childhood Experiences questionnaire was 10 questions. And from that, they could correlate suicide rates. So if you clicked yes on any 7 of those questions, you knew. Statistically, 50,000 sample, you knew there was a 5,000% increase in your probability of committing suicide. So you could say, okay, I'm in the high risk category for suicide because of these things, not because I'm a bad person, but because being hurt in these ways at a young age correlates with the kind of pain that includes wanting to die. I'm a high risk person. What do I do to lower my risk? That's science. That's increasing well-being. It's a 10-page questionnaire programmed into an app like that. Everyone needs to take these questionnaires. The same with a highly sensitive person questionnaire. It's like 12 questions, 5 minutes to answer. Yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. You are part of the 10% of the population that is highly sensitive. What that means is you need a little icon on your app that says HSP. You need to fill out some notes that lets anyone engaging with you say, oh, okay, he hates loud noises. I'm not going to invite him to a disco, or if I do, invite him to my house, I'm going to play gentle music. I already know that about him. I've learned it. I don't have to push this into every interaction and make our first date all about educating me about highly sensitive and stuff. I have learned that in advance. We can have fun together now. 2 minutes, it's done. For everyone. Not just one person. And again, one person. Not ignorance leading to pain, leading to confusion, leading to shame and blame. Education. The highly sensitive person. Little HSP icon on the app. Trauma risk factor on the app. And then what to do about it? Well, here's the book. You can read the book on highly sensitive people. You can educate people on your sensitivities. You can read this book on trauma. You can go to these therapists who have taken high workshops, who understand high workshops, and have also read these books and then what's the high feedback on those therapists? So how many people have gone to these therapists? 1 to 10, how helpful has it been on a personality level, on a listening level, on a protocol level, on a technique level? Were they informed? Did it work? What was the end result? 1 to 10, 1 to 10, 1 to 10, done. Contact them here, give them a call. Hello, I just learned I'm a 7 out of 10 risk factor for trauma. I don't really know that much about it, but I see you got good reviews. Can I come in and talk with you? Can I learn about it? I'm having some issues with this and that. Sure, done. That is a community in which more people are winning. The therapist wins, Hai wins, the individual wins, everyone in their relationship with them wins. 15 minutes of effort for all of that. And of course, when people make more money, when they're more competent, when they're more confident, when they're more effective, who gets more workshops attended? Hai does. Hai wins. Hai has many problems, but the one it focuses on a lot is money. How are we going to get? You've got to help your people be successful. That's how. You're a high trauma risk, it's untreated, your income is lower. You're not being helped in these ways within the community. You are being re-traumatized. You don't want to come back. Hai's income goes down. It's a complete win-win. Jason looks at it as a business. You got to help your people. You've got to provide top-notch value. And if your number one question is how can I give more value to my clients? What's the easiest thing that we could do to double? This is a great question. What's the easiest thing that we could do to double the value of the average participant receives from a workshop? And that doesn't double our cost. I mean, that's the great design. How can we double the value without doubling the cost? How could we spend 10% of our budget to triple the value that a participant receives on average as a result of being part of our community? That is a great question. It leads to more win-win. These are questions that should be there in the app. Do you want to be a Hai development supporter? Easy. You click on that. You answer all these questions. You talk about your skills, your resources. You propose projects you'd like to take on. You look at other people that are wanting to do that. You form a team, you do it. You don't know all these people. You don't know these things. You meet them in a support group. They're not advertising, I want to help with this. I'm a skilled programmer, this and that and the other. It's in the app. You want to know who has your same love language within the community? 10 minutes to fill out that form. Bing. Anyone clicks on your profile, number one love language is quality time. Oh, I'm too busy. Okay. I'm going to dissatisfy this person. I'm not going to even waste their time. Number one, quality time. Number two, words of appreciation. Number three, touch. That matches me. I like them. Had a nice rapport there. They're wanting to do this. Oh, they're HSP. I can see. Yeah. Connect with data. Data equals success. Data equals success when intelligently utilized. It can be done in an app. So this is actually an answer to that question, in my humble opinion. This is an answer. A good app. A good app. Trauma is a really, really important thing. It needs a module within the team. I've talked with members of the team about the tensions I've had around undiagnosed trauma, whatever, and I asked for that and they don't help us. I feel nervous when I can see someone's upset. I do not have the training to respond and I feel bad and I don't know what to do. It's absurd. Give the team support to know what to do. So there's a couple of ways this can happen. One, the app. The app can have a little trauma kit. This is what you need to know about trauma, 2 or 3 pages. It's not much. It doesn't need that much. The big eye-opener for me, that trauma is biological, that it works with the fight-flight mechanism and freeze mechanism of the body, and that it needs to be healed through the body, and you shouldn't talk about traumatic events if they're re-traumatizing you and da-da-da. It's a paragraph or two, and yet it's life-changing. Put it in there. Say, we're not experts. These therapists are. Go talk to them. Take the questionnaire. Read these books. The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk. I'm doing a work for 2 leading San Francisco medical psychotherapists. I'm doing work right now with meaning they're hiring me as a contractor. So top psychologist and surgeon and stuff, and they all know about Bessel. They love him, but I didn't learn from any of my therapists or high practitioners, facilitators, in 10 years. Not a thing in the workshop, not a thing from any of the team. All the trauma that I experienced within high, all the help that I asked for, the word never came up. The where to go to do more never came up. They either didn't know, or there was a lack of protocol. Probably both, in different situations. Bottom line is, I came out disempowered. We're committed to empowering individuals. Disempowered. That needs to change. The team needs support. So, books, an aspect of training modules, volunteer possibilities so that anyone within the community can update the community on their own traumatic experiences, what to do about it, where to go for help, new research coming out. I've put it in my media sample here, new research coming out. And so these very clear wins, my part of what I think can balance out and integrate what has been an incredibly expensive process. And these learning curves and stuff, they come along. The challenge is to extract something so valuable from them that despite them costing hundreds of thousands of dollars and this and that and the other, that there's a win that offsets it. And I'm trying to look into what that could be. So these are the first 4 areas. Number 5, a public, direct apology from High and the facilitators as follows. 1, I would like a trained professional to review all of this records, because as far as I know, one of the biggest lose-lose aspects of this is the high facilitator denial aspect. This isn't a high issue, it's crazy. And I feel like I have been burdened with the role of being the nag at a time I don't want to be burdened, because High was unwilling to burden itself with the preparation to take adequate care for my well-being. And then, as a result of its ignorance, requiring me to spend vast amounts of money, time, and effort educating them about what they didn't know they didn't know. And I don't want that role. I want them to go out and get properly trained, to own up, to be big enough to recognize either our commitment is very weak indeed and we're only committed to these few little areas, and if you want anything else, go out and get it. Or to say, we are committed to a world in which at least our participants win. We're committed to healthy relationships. We realize that trauma is one of the top 3 threats why most of our participants are not going to be successful in their relationships to one degree or another. Why we are not successful in our relationships to one degree or another. And so this is our job. to do what we can, and at the very least, always give people a place to go and grow further. Always. So I want them to review and get clear on what their blind spots are from the view of an objective professional. Don't take my word for it. Hire an objective professional. Get help where help is needed to heal trauma between the facilitators. It happens. And next, from that position, to publicly talk about it. I do not want to be high's dirty secret. I do not believe that anyone wins in the bigger sense of the word by hushing this up. You know, the Catholic Church thought that people won. They would send out these specialists and convince these moms and boys to shut up. They would pay them money, and then they would say, this is the only time it's happened. We're gonna get help. It will hurt the church. It will hurt your family. It will hurt the community. Don't say anything about this. This is the Catholic Church protocol. And they did it again and again and again. And they'd move priests from one area to another when things got a little bit hot. And then they do the same thing over there. They thought this was protection for the Catholic Church. What did it do? It blew up in their face in the biggest... See, and what I told Jason is I said, Jason, as an organization devoted to healthy relationships, devoted to love, intimacy, and sexuality, your brand does not support secrets. This is an ugly and unpalatable secret, period. 2, it is not my secret. I've done the best I can in this situation. I am not interested. I don't believe in secrets. I'm very transparent. This is not my secret. This is your secret. Don't divide the community. Don't divide one another. Don't divide our relationship. You have one ethical option here. You have an unpalatable secret. And your only way to heal that is to turn it into a palatable truth. Not an unpalatable truth. Not we're committed to sexually exploiting vulnerable participants, saying nothing about it, hiding it for 10 years, not apologizing, not giving them a refund, then having our facilitators break high agreements, lie about it, keep secrets from their wives, then make that person worse, then not support them, not get them help, and then shame and blame the participant again, and then not give a refund, and then keep them a dirty secret, and then knock them off the high email list. That's what we're committed to. That's a dirty secret. That is a dirty secret. Do you feel all excited about going to high, knowing that that's what will happen? If you have the misfortune to stumble into one of the facilitator's blind spots, that this is how you're treated? Of course you don't. It's a joke. But what's a palatable truth? And I expressed what I thought was a palatable truth. The palatable truth is we're human too. We make mistakes. We fucked up here. We don't have an oversight committee. We don't have this. We're looking at what we can learn. Peter didn't set out to hurt Dane, but he did. We're looking at issues, what are we having to do? And Dane's taking the brunt of this. Dane's life is going down because of our incompetence. Please help. Please give him some love, support, and encouragement, and we'll be back. We will keep growing here. Our commitment is to be intimate and vulnerable with you. I begged Jason repeatedly to take this stance. Never did. Never replied to that. 3 separate requests. Never replied. It's a dirty secret. Still is. Come clean. Hi, facilitators, come clean. Be vulnerable. Let people see your beauty, your strengths, your inadequacies, your lack of training, what you're doing about it. Jason told me Peter would go to an ethical course. So what came out of that? I haven't gotten a refund. Peter's been griping to the very end about how unfair this is all for him. So unfair for Peter. That's not a good field for me, for you, for anyone else. I think we have a right to know when our leaders make mistakes. We can't wait to do it with the president. Oh, you made a mistake there. Real leadership owns its own mistakes. I made a mistake. Now, Peter sent me a beautiful apology. And I said, engage the team. Tell them what's going on. Help the team form a trauma. He just ignored it. No. I sent him, he said, I'm not sure what to say, I sent him draft emails, right? I think this would be the healthy thing to say to the team. I think this would be a healthy thing to say to the community. Engage and ask for help. Be a human being. Stop being a superhuman shame dumper in which you hide your mistakes and you dump them on other people. Own your issues. To my knowledge, next thing I knew, I was off all the lists. I'm a threat. I'm the threat. I don't want to be viewed as a threat. So that's part of not winning. I would like Hi to be big enough to say Dane cares enough about our community to risk talking about all his vulnerable personal stuff, all of his own inadequacies and all that, to see that we as a community learn about trauma. Because he's aware there's a big blind spot. Thank you. We want more participants like you. People who are into me, you see. There's nothing but intimacy in this whole project. Into me, you see. If you don't like that, don't go to Hi. That's what it says it's about. It's about love. Now, you can't love what you don't see. If you have sex without love and without intimacy, I don't think it's healthy. So intimacy comes first. Into me, you see, comes first. Then comes real love, if you're capable of it. If you're capable. If you're not, fine. And if you see and you love, I think sexuality is very healthy. And yet there's a lot of hypocrisy within the community, within the organization, because it takes time to see. Peter and Sarah told me, spend about an hour a day. She'd like a bit more, an hour a day. I cannot maintain intimacy without an average of 4 hours a day. I've tried it. Plenty of women want these shortcut relationships. I want the sex, I want the this, but I don't want to give up anything else. I want my tennis, my backgammon, my this, my book club, my work, my TV time, my solo time, my meditation time, and could you just fit into this little hour, maybe 4 hours a date? Could you fit into there? It's like, sex can fit into there, but I can't. No, not even close. 4 hours minimum. Then you have intimacy. If you watch all the media that I watch, if you watch all the videos I've created, if you learn and reflect and notice how you feel about positive and negative about each one, and if you tell me positive and negative how you feel in detailed length, 10, 20 hours of video, we will be in the top 1% of intimacy in this country. It's not perfect by any means because it's just in this area. There's 100 times more about me and stuff that you will not see, that I will not see about you. So love isn't very real in those arenas that are still vague and nebulous. It takes a real commitment. And I think, if we're going to be honest, see, Sarah either isn't ethical in this situation because she sees Peter's faults but doesn't protect participants from them, or much more likely, she doesn't see them any more than I saw Peter's faults because he's so good at evading and running and charming it over. And that's easy to do in an hour a day on average. It's easy. It's very hard to do 24/7. I just spent 2 months with a woman 24/7 in one room. You can't have lies in that situation. It's too difficult. It's no fun. It's not intimate. But now we're only spending 4 hours a day together. And lots of little parts of my life and stuff that she doesn't fully see and vice versa. And so that's a minimum, like 4 hours a day. Are we committed to intimacy? How much? The amount that you spend directly determines the statistical outcome in a number of areas of relationship. So you pick your probability field based on that variable. I think we need fewer relationships that are more intimate. That's what the data is telling me. How about it? How about statistical data, on that? And, if you spend 4 hours a day together, I guarantee you the affair rate and all the infidelity and stuff drops dramatically. You don't have time. But I hear these women talk about, their boyfriend who had 8 lovers simultaneously. It's like, I don't have 8 times 4 hours a day to do, how'd that happen? Oh, well, we just text. And then every couple of weeks we have sex. That's not a relationship. I mean, he probably had room for 20 lovers, but every couple of weeks you have sex for an hour or so. It's like, do you really want to see your partner? I think this is a challenge to a community that has rejected me primarily over time. Jason said he wanted to be my friend. He didn't have the time. Peter said he didn't have the time. Sarah didn't have the time. Time. But that's the only way you can be intimate. If there's a single facilitator who is genuinely surprised that Peter broke his high agreements, did this, that, and the other, and hurt me in this way, then that is a facilitator that doesn't know what they don't know about IntiMeUC. That's a facilitator who did not know the shadow side of Peter. Now, we love to pretend, oh, well, that's Peter's fault. No, we had to all tolerate that. That's Sarah's. And so Peter's choice is, like many people do, I'll only relate to you if I can do it in these tiny little doses that'll allow me to hide. But everyone has to go along with that. And that in and of itself can be a little bit of a red flag. You want this complete freedom to show up in these little doses and stuff where no one can get a clear lock on you. Well, that's not IntiMeUC. How about writing a 400-page book about every aspect of me like I do and give to my partners? 400 pages. That's just a little bit. Just a bit. Into me you see. How much do you want? How much do you want to be able to love? Well, you got to understand what you love, for at least the way we define it in the West. So this is another area of growth, to use the app to increase into me you see, to see more and play less of the game that I hear so often. If only I had known. Well, did you ask? No. Would you like to ask me all those questions? No, I don't have time. But if only you had known. Well, you're not going to know if you don't have time to ask, you don't ask, and you don't listen. So all those tragedies and these epic dramas, if only I had known, get resolved when you know. An app can help us know. It can bring about great intimacy. So I would like an apology, and I would like one of the areas that I think winning can increase for both the facilitators, the team and participants, and organizations worldwide, is for HI to do an analysis of why its blind spots occurred, what allowed the blind spots, what were the blind spots, and how they eventually cured the blind spots. I mean, because they're not going to come out of this without curing the blind spots. I don't believe it's humanly possible to watch the videos and stuff in this amount of nuance without bringing enough awareness into the arena. Because even to create a good rejection, like I reject that for this reason, you got to understand the reason. And even that, it stops being a blind spot. It now becomes a conscious protocol of abandoning participants for these reasons. Maybe we don't have the money, we don't have the resources, so we will abandon participants in these reasons. We will not help them. But now you've got the awareness to say, we're not committed to everyone winning. We're committed within the scope of these resources, which doesn't allow that. So it's no longer a blind spot. Or we are committed, and we see didn't do it here, and here's how we're expressing that commitment. Here's how we're going to fundraise. Here's how we're going to ask for volunteer help. I want that out there for the benefit of HI, the benefit of each facilitator. You cannot heal a dis-ease, a pattern you're in denial around. And it's not right to me. It's not right to me to have Peter recommended in a generic, non-caveated way for all things in relationship to oneself and others, and trust and pay money, and then be ripped apart and divided and left feeling crazy, shame, weaker, endangered, traumatized, and hurt, and have that ripple out into my whole life. That is not right. Which brings me to my next question, my next 100%. If I at age 22, and one of my first big business blunders when I brought in, it was like 200 yards, like 20 dump truck loads of this thick, boggy compost. And I rototilled it all into this sandy kind of area so that it would hold water and and planted the whole thing. And I told them it would be green in the summer, like the area that was not irrigated across the street. The soil changed dramatically in the substrate from across the street to there. I didn't know that at the time. I wasn't educated enough. So they paid me $4,000, which is a great price for all that work. I was only $20 an hour. And they called me up. They said, Brown, done absolutely nothing. Okay, here's your $4,000 back. I don't have it all at once, so I'm going to give it back. $20 an hour, $4,000. I'm just starting out. They got it all back. That's just a garden. We're not talking about people's heart, spirit, soul, integration process. We're talking about a basic ethics of responsibility for incompetence. I was incompetent in the diagnosis of one of the core issues. I diagnosed the surface issue. The surface issue was there was no organic matter in the soil. That's a basic thing. So everyone knows you need more organic matter. Everyone knows you need to rototill it in. Everyone knows you need to seed things. Everyone knows how to germinate seeds. Did all that perfectly. But I didn't diagnose the deepest issue. The deepest was we were on a sandy cliff. It's pure sand for 40 feet below that organic matter. The rain just parches right out of that. So no matter how much organic matter I added, it wouldn't have worked. It would not have worked. That's poor diagnosis. So they got all of their money back, no questions, my offer, volunteering it, paying it in installments. So, same question. Peter diagnosed and shamed the coping strategy of control, the top issue, but not how that was keeping me safe in deep repressed trauma. He simultaneously made the deep and repressed trauma, which I didn't do. It'd be as if I destabilized their bluff deep down and caused a landslide, which you can do if you don't know what you're doing. It'd be as if I did that, and then blamed it on the client and offered no refund. That's what Peter did. Commented and shamed the surface coping mechanism, gave me no understanding of the deep issue, charged me money as if he was an expert, destabilized the issue and caused a much stronger rewinding and reactive stuff, shamed it, and then left me hanging without any apology and carried right on as if he was the expert in these areas. You know, one of his last comments was boasting about the fact that Peter Levine's top people sometimes come to him for trauma because he's that good of a trauma expert. He's that good that he caused the biggest trauma in my life, didn't tell me anything about trauma, didn't help protect me from it, and shamed me, which was another trauma. I mean, maybe he is, but not to me. You know, every client analyzes the relationship with their professional based on results in that relationship. I mean, that's actually kind of worse. Like, what if I told that client, you know, my last client, their lawn is perfectly green, you know, for miles around. Everyone's commenting on how green it is. I'm such a great lawn. Hello, here we've got a dead lawn. My job is dead. That's what we're talking about here. So, when I began this process, I had $89,000 in savings. I was getting ready to do my house, etc., etc. I'm now $20,000 in debt for the first time in 10 years in my life. How that money got spent, direct coping mechanisms. 150 hours worth of healing work with one practitioner, 12 hours with another, 12 hours with another, 2 months flat on my back, sick. I want ethical treatment. The high facilitator choice not to apologize added a third to that. Because I collapsed out, because I realized I'm not dealing with sane, ethical people at this point. They don't know what they're doing. There's no way they can dig themselves out of this. Because I don't believe in any of it. There's just no way they can come out of this winning and refusing to apologize. And it's hurting me enormously because I've realized I'm sick I'm in a sick relationship. And I desperately need help. I still need a lot of help. And I don't have it. I don't have it. Because I have been betrayed. My trust that these people knew what they were doing in this area and had a commitment level that would not allow their expediency to sell me out was betrayed. I feel betrayed. I feel deeply hurt. I'm still dealing with eating disorders and stuff around that because it hurts so much at the ache there. It's like, I know I'm doing it. Yes, I have choice. I've always supported my coping strategies. Turns out that's suggested. Bessel says, hey, it's multiple sources say don't attack your coping strategy. Work with a deeper issue until it's no longer necessary. So if I keep putting on a few pounds, if I manage to get through the day with that ache, I know what I'm doing, I know what the source is. The poundage is less painful than that ache, I will do it. Makes sense. People aren't idiots. We are not becoming an obese nation because people are idiots. We are becoming an obese nation because people are traumatized, people are abused, and they're not taught coping strategies. And we are not engineered to heal trauma in this culture. Are their coping mechanisms destroying their health? To a degree. They're protecting the individual to some degree as well. So that is, that's just one of many ripple effects. What about Weepa being flat on her back for a month? Unable to work and the loss to her thing. So, what I'm looking at is a paradigm that I'm calling scientific well-being. You can look at that website, Scientific Wellbeing, I think it's .com or .org. But basically it's a paradigm where win-win begins by analyzing how to create the most amount of value with the least amount of effort. It's a great question. How can I create the most amount of value with the least amount of effort? It's always worked well with my business. But there it's been the question, how can I do that, to make money? Just for global well-being. The reason I'm working on this app, that's my answer. It's like if I could create an app that everyone could download for free that would increase their well-being even 5%, and I can get 1 million people to download that app, then I have had 5 million percentage points of well-being going up, spread over a wide number of people. If that's sustainable, that's brilliant. That's my number one interest. And so what I'm looking at is how I feel I and other people can have the most impact from this. So one of them is education. High facilitators are above average and exceptional in some categories. Above average in some categories, exceptional in some categories, obviously in some categories terrible. Which means we're in big shit if these people can do this and think this is intelligent, because they've grown up in this culture. That means we are in big shit. Because above average, intelligent people intending well are doing stupid things for their own well-being, for my well-being, for the community's well-being, for the world's well-being. None of us win with that. That means this is happening all over the place. They're not exceptional in the way organizations handle crap. Look at the Catholic Church. Catholic Church had tons of money and they chose to deal with it this way. So we need to grow. How do you grow with it's all kept secret? the more we can see, aha, the Catholics do this, Trump does this, Obama does this, Hillary does this, Hai does this, the CIA does this. I mean, then we can get to the reality. We do this sometimes, and it hurts all of us. And it's not the people, it's the pattern. You can't fight a pattern that's secret, that's in denial. So part of this is I'm looking at how to spread this pattern. And I believe that high facilitators committed to intimacy and love in a professional capacity, there's nothing I'm talking about that isn't part of a professional relationship. I asked many of them to be my friends. They said, no, why? Take too much time. I told them I needed 4 hours a week to be a friend. Because I said, less than that, I don't feel like anyone sees me. It's not a friend, just a label. They said, no, okay, so we're not friends. But we can be allies in that, Hai has supported my well-being in going up. Hai has supported many people's well-beings in up. And Hai has hurt a lot of people with blind spots, this, that, and the other. And I think many of those people do not know that they've been hurt because the blind spot is so universal. It's like if you've got a dissociated part that's disowned by the culture and someone chops that part in half with a machete, do you feel the pain? If you're dissociated, no. But some part of you does. And that's another reason I'm going into this at great length. We've got to know the areas we've been hurt. We've got to know who's hurting us. We've got to know what's hurting us. And we've got to start healing the pattern. Transparency, light, consciousness is the first step of healing a pattern. So I will bring that. So making this more into a documentary, this is not in a form that works, but sending this to more psychotherapists and psychologists in the area. I had a therapist recommend me to Hai. I think they should know. So putting this together is a chance for light to come into this pattern. Now within our culture, this is, ratting, gossiping, slamming, smearing, whatever, all these different stuffs that we use to hide the fact that if the truth is really so ugly, I don't mind sharing the emails. I have mixed feelings about sharing the 10-hour recording of, my personal private session in which Peter's asking me to kiss him and do this and that and the other. But that is a recording. It is an object. It's not a subjective thing. Peter has initially, denied saying some of the things on the recording, but no one, it's not like it's a he said, she said subjective things where, he said this, but his voice says this. This is an objective object. If that is not something that Peter and the organization is willing to embrace and take a stand for, then it shouldn't be doing that. It's that simple. It's not that it shouldn't be talked about. You are not at choice unless you are informed about the reality in which you're choosing. That's just... If I say, would you like to order, this item, and I say it has no meat in it and no fat, none of that, no MSG, and you order it and I put meat and fat and stuff, are you empowered when you get allergic reactions? No, you're not empowered. So if a food editor says, famous restaurant puts meat, MSG and stuff and denies it to their patrons, so-and-so gets sick, is that a smear campaign? No, that only happens 1% of the time. No, 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 that's a one-time thing. No, you got it all wrong. Da, 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 da. It's all your fault. No, you want to know. You got that risk. Because then you can take extra steps. Then you don't just take a big bite unconsciously and trust that it's all that way. You actually say, oh, let's look, smell it, and you get to see. Your safety goes up knowing this data. If you don't want to know it, you don't have to read it. But don't attack someone for empowering you with truth because you don't want to know the truth. You don't have to learn it. You can stay as blind as you need and want to stay. My siblings were not ready to hear or examine my parents' abuse until they were in their 20s. They all attacked me in my teens when I was trying to help them advocate for themselves, and I was really seeing how dangerous it was. But when you need a community, when you need a practitioner, etc., when they've helped you, Hai helped me more than any group has ever helped me. So I'm incredibly loyal and attached to wanting that to be available, to liking that, to all the benefits that was received to me. That hasn't disappeared. For the last 10 years, my life was probably 30% better because of Hai. Of course, I paid for all those workshops. None of it was a gift. If that was a gift, so was the 30 grand I spent, But that was a really great investment. It was a great partnership. Despite the inadequacies and omissions, it's a great one. That should be continuing. We're all complex units. We're all sick in some area. We're all able to contribute in some area. The contribution needs to be continued. The sickness, the disease needs to be disconnected and healed from the individual. And you have got to name the pattern when it is in a group or an individual. That's the first step of medicine. This is very crude because they're in denial, and I don't trust them whatsoever. They wouldn't hire the psychologist. They wouldn't hire the therapist. They have put the burden of their inadequacy on me from day one in the private practice work. I don't believe that's a sustainable stance. It needs to shift for their own benefit as well as mine. And so this question of how can the most people benefit, this is a great example. And it takes great courage. It takes great courage. I'm part of this. My blind spots, my lack of ability to advocate for myself, my terror, this is all my pattern as well as Hai's pattern. The trouble is I'm not charging Hai $175 an hour and telling them to come improve their lives and all that with me and how committed and all that and I am to all. I'm not charging them a thing. I'm not putting out my shingle. I have my stuff. They have their stuff. But they are charging, putting out a shingle, and that's the worst possible thing. If you go to your doctor and you get sick, if you go to a hospital and come out dead, that's evil. Because that's your one resource that needs to be sacred. You need to come out of there healthier. So I'm looking at what I can do on many levels. I've heard a lot of people in these ripple effects out of this stuff. So I want to see a lot of people having an opportunity to learn more, heal more. So that involves putting a lot of my personal stuff on the line, knowing that I am in a sick culture in which I will be attacked and judged more than I'm helped and loved for being vulnerable. Well, it's taken me 2 years to do this because I realized I have to expect this. If the Hai facilitators can do this to me, and they're bound ethically and morally and financially and all that, what's the general public going to do? Who knows? Am I healthy enough to be able to handle attacks from random strangers that don't want to listen, don't want to do, that just want to get me out of their hair and spout off some judgment? Well, that's part of being in leadership, particularly in our country. So I have to be well enough to withstand that buffering, which is a big burden. It's like, I don't want to be buffered and whacked just because this isn't right and I've got to talk about it because the facilitators won't. But that is a cost. And I think there's always a chance. There's always a chance with a healthy protocol for everyone to come out a winner. I'm looking at possibilities that if it wants, High could come out significantly more profitable, ethical, and healthy than it's been. Possibilities. It's obviously all about implementation and cooperation and all that. And their fucked up consensus deadlock process that left me hanging, to this day may need to change. If that's what's holding you and I back from getting the growth and service that we need, or if other organizations that are coming up and doing it better, fine. High will dissolve. But it doesn't have to. It doesn't have to. And it's not right that the facilitators get fat on these $100 to $200 fees outside, benefiting from High while High goes down when all their work is coming from that. That's not right, particularly when people are getting hurt in that area. And so I would like Peter to make a commitment to repay that money that I've spent. And I'd like for it to be acknowledged that we are allies in some areas. Allies. No, I will never trust Peter to volunteer the truth. He's old enough that if he's not doing that by this age and da-da-da-da-da, that may never change. But I do trust Peter to care. I do trust Peter to do his best to be loving. I trust that Peter's heart is in the right place. I trust he wants to help people. I trust that, in a number of ways, he is a good man. And that he has enormous possibility to contribute. I believe that the sickness of denial, that the blinders needed to see things in the way that he's seeing things are thick enough that they will dramatically reduce his capacity to contribute some amazingly potential gifts. And that $100,000, $10,000, $200,000, $1 million is not enough to justify in other words, that he's losing more by maintaining these blinders in which he feels like the victim and all that, than he's gaining by making amends. I experienced that the first time I paid that client a full $4,000 refund and gave them all the 20 dump truck loads of amended soil for free because it didn't do what it was supposed to do, which was keep it green without irrigation. They turned right around and obviously said, to themselves, this is a highly ethical person who really cares about us. Let's give him another chance. They turned around and gave me one of my biggest jobs. It's a win. It's a win to treat people well. It's a win to learn. It's a win to grow. I've had a whole learning through this process by my willingness, and it has changed my life. I was sick in many ways a couple of years ago. And I didn't fully understand how and why. I had my blind spots. But I can't look at the blind spots within Peter and Hai without seeing my own. And in seeing my own, like, I just look at what has come out of the last 2 years. It's phenomenal. Phenomenal. Because truth and awareness brings the enormous transformation, because pain and terror are enormous teachers. And because I care about people, I know if I'm going through this, I know what people are going through. It's not right. So I'm getting involved. I'm on day 24 of a 30-day project. You can check it out on scientificwellbeing.com or scientificwellbeing.org. Just one of many things, the blogging about taboo emotions, blogging about PTSD. I've made more than 100 videos about PTSD and trauma. Just stuff that would be comforting and help people feel less shame if they're going through PTSD and feeling crazy and feeling judged. What do I call that? healingtrauma.com, I think it is. So, I've got 300 new hours of service-oriented videos. Service. What can I do? How can I make this agony worth something? There's just a little part of that. And I want to do more of that. I want to develop that app. I want to create a viral app that dramatically increases human well-being by helping them effectively diagnose their dis-ease, mentally, emotionally, physically, and by making the whole thing free, open sourced. There's lots of stuff in that. And I'm really, really excited about it. And it's not right that, I had $89,000 to fund this stuff. By the time I'm coming out and learning it, I'm $20,000 in debt. So I'm working on the little $400 version of the app as kind of testing and stuff like that. I'm doing a lot of work with community design, since I grew up at Findhorn, Hawthorne Valley, and Hoathly Hill, 3 successful communities around the world, and to varying degrees. And I see, because I know if I can solve my problem, if I can create a context in which I could have felt sane, safe, and survived this, there's only about a 30% chance that I'm still alive right now. I felt the vortices and all that, and I knew I could not count on living. So I'm in a minority of Danes that made it through this. And yet every Dane deserved to make it through this. Every Dane wanted to grow, wanted to learn. You don't spend $250,000 on therapies, helps, crystals, workshops, this, that, and the other, and write books and give them away if you're not interested in helping and learning and healing. It's one of the biggest insults that Peter Sandhill gave me, was saying, this is so unfair, do your own work. I've been doing nothing but work since I was 13 years old. You, by contrast, could take a little bit of your own medicine there and do some of your own work ethically, therapeutically. Do some of your own work. Don't dump it on your clients. Don't dump it on your organization. Do some of your own work. The organization, don't dump your lack of, your laziness on your team and on your other facilitators. Give them some guidance. What is this commitment to everyone winning? How about an app? Let's do some work. So I'd like, so that's part of the vision. depending on how it comes out, I could even see a possibility of more intimate collaboration. The app, I think Hi would be a very good, the app that I want to give around the world for free. I want to create it so that groups such as Hi can use it for free or whatever the maintenance costs are or whatever. But that it's available for others and that groups can teach each other what's working. So there's a lot of stuff in that, in that arena that I'm very interested in. The project I just finished, how to spend 30 minutes a day for 30 days, having the most positive impact with the least amount of effort or within that boundary, is culminating on, there's more than 12 projects started, one of which is 3 songs I've commissioned on the fact that the single biggest idea that emerged out of all that data research, which I got help with, was that a woman choosing in a Western country not to have a child or another child takes $80,000 of gasoline out of the atmosphere, takes 100 tons of CO2 out of the atmosphere, takes more than 1,500 tons of CO2 out of the atmosphere, takes more than 100 tons of garbage out, increases her sex life 50%, reduces stress and health issues, saves an average of $400,000 in a wealthy category, and saves 30,000 hours of time. I gathered all this research together when I learned through research that one of the most important things affecting our well-being as a client, as a species over the next 50 years is the population density in wealthy areas of the world. So a wealthy woman, you and I, choosing not to have a child or another child, has all of this benefit. Now then this becomes exponential if you take $100,000 of that $400,000 that you'd spend on the kid, and you can save more than 300 lives. You can cure more than 500 blind people. You can buy thousands of acres of rainforest preserve. You can help people in trauma. You can study a skill. If you spend 10,000 hours becoming an expert in something, which is a world-class expert in 10,000 hours, that's a third of the $33,000 you spend attending to one child over the course of 18 years. You can contribute to the world. So this is the most potent idea, and the beauty of it, your sex life goes up, your health goes up. Any woman is empowered. She doesn't need a man. She just has to say no. This is one of the 12 projects emerged from this last 30 days. So I just commissioned 3 songs to be written on the data, that lyrics. I've got whiteboard animations, For every child that doesn't get born in a highly developed country, I've just taken 100,000 gallons out of the air. I've just reduced our military antagonism with the West and all that. And then that's why I have the time to do all this, because I don't have a child. 30 minutes a day is nothing. But I'm really excited, and now I've got a few people starting to do this project. 30 minutes a day for 30 days. How can I create the most amount of well-being for the most number of people in that time? This is exciting. It's exciting. This video is a small part of it. I'm not treating it as that project because I know a lot of people will feel contraction around several aspects of it. So it's something I believe in. It's definitely not the highest return, because in part it could all be rejected and blocked and could High has the choice, and the facilitators have the choice to go deeper in their caves and defenses and attack me more for doing this. Or they have the choice to say, this whole thing is a joke. We made a complete mistake from day one. We weren't trained, we weren't prepared, we're human beings, let's admit it, let's grow, let's move on, and let's start increasing the value and safety for our participants. That is a choice. So what else can be a win for here? So definitely increasing the team module. Another win, and I've asked for all of this to varying degrees, except the app. And when I first talked about it with Anne, it hadn't even cost me, I think it had cost me around $30,000 in 1 month in bed. When I first told Anne, I said, my sense of the ethics with Peter, I'm not interested in attacking, I'm not interested in punishing. But I think the responsible thing is for him to, number one, understand why he's hurt me so much, apologize, and do whatever it takes so that my well-being is brought up to the level it was before I paid him to hurt me. I think that's a reasonable standard. Well, that was in the first month. It's now been, 2 years later, and many betrayals and denials and ostracizations and all stuff, later, and so I think, and that's when I thought they would be together enough to actually help me, and I wouldn't need, go and hire other therapists and go overseas and stuff like that. But you got to follow your own well-being. When your adrenals are collapsing and your emotions are skyrocketing into pain, whatever medicine is being given to you is wrong. And when you see it's just, I read the business books. I've studied more than 200 brilliant biographies and stuff. Excellence when you see it. Ethics when you feel it and see it. Betrayal when you feel it and see it. This was a massive betrayal of every single one involved, of High, of the facilitators, of me. Everyone lost because of a lack of skill and preparation, because of a lack of understanding and education, because of a lack of courage, a lack of discipline, a lack of preparation and protocol. Everyone lost. So that needs to change. So one of the things, the facilitators need a review, and they need a review structure. Now, of course, they say, oh, this never will happen again. Well, it won't if there's a review structure, for sure. That's why it happened. A review where, their board does not work, just so you know. I contacted Desiree Storch, one of my friends. She said, I'm just volunteering. I'm busy with tax season, da-da-da-da-da. I'll take a look at this. She took no stand for my well-being. She's not trained as a board member. She's not compensated. She's not trained. She's just doing High a favor. As are most of the board members. That's fine. But it means that High doesn't have a board in the technical sense. If you read a couple hundred business biographies, you will understand the role of a board in ethics, protecting the business and all that. High does not have that kind of a board. So it got a board so that I'm looking at getting a board for my nonprofit because I don't want to be taxed by my government to give away free apps for human well-being. So I've got to create a nonprofit. Well, they want a board. It's the same situation. I don't want a board. It's like, do I want, every time I want to improve the app, have a board member say, no, that's not the way it should be done. That's not the best way to spend the money. Everyone, every founder, every facilitator hates having overview. But there is a purpose for it. Every president hates having a Congress, but there is a purpose for it. High needs some kind of oversight. They behave like gods, and in this case, children. They need some kind of oversight. What is that? I think apparently there's an ethical committee to review the team, but not the facilitators. They were not consulted. Which is one of the reasons I let the team know that, hello, this is all going on. Are abusing their agreements and stuff far more than many of you are. Something needs to be done for the safety of participants. Something. So this is a great learning opportunity. What is that structure? Number one. Number two, they need consultants. I want HI to invite 6 trauma and psychotherapists and marriage family therapists to, one, attend the workshops and just pay the meal cost. Attend the workshops gratis. Number two, give feedback on how to make the workshops healthier in traumatic situations. And three, have a peer review thing so that if the HI facilitators want to continue offering unlicensed therapy without adequate training, that there is some guidance from people so that the client gets the best of both ethics and worlds. I think that's good for HI, good for and the most important question in this whole thing is, what is best for the participant? This is not about me. It's about the participant. It's not about me. It's about the client. You, the possible participant or client, is what this needs to be about protecting. Your well-being needs to go up. Otherwise, this isn't a good idea. So this is what we, so I would like to see this. I would also like to see, volunteer growth, where basically new trends and data gets added to this app from participants, from team members, so that people can learn, can be tested and rated. Good piece of data, avocados help with so-and-so, and blah, 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 blah. I did it and I'd give it a 1 out of 10. I'd give it an 8 out of 10. Okay, the consensus is that half the people get high results, half the people get no result, but just an avocado, it tastes good, so give it a try and see if you're in the high category. That kind of thing around emotional, mental issues. There's a new book that came out. I learned this, this, and this that I didn't learn in high. Me too, me too, me too. Well, maybe the facilitators will try it in the workshop. So this, I think, is a wonderful beginning of all the different ways we all can win in this type of situation. And another thing is this process can be transparent. Let people learn about what works and what doesn't work about a process like this. This is a new kind of documentary. It's a new kind of way of holding a group or leadership accountable. We do it in these fucked up sound bites where nobody gets their point across, where nothing is discussed in nuanced detail. This is intimate. HI is perfectly welcome to make a 5, 10, 30-hour documentary talking about their thoughts. Because that's part of the process. Why did the HI facilitators exclude me? Why would their protocol be to take the one person who's in pain, the one person bringing the issue to their attention, which should be their ally, and exclude them from the process? Is that an intelligent approach? If you call the police, they talk to you. They don't go talk to your offender. So why wouldn't someone who says they care about you actually come and talk to you? Gather all the information. Doesn't make any sense. We need a protocol of ethics for that. And this needs to be spelled out so that there is accountability. Because they can spin it any way they want at this point. We thought we should do this and this for that reason. But let's be transparent about what our protocol is when a facilitator hurts someone. Do we keep secrets? Are we intimate? How are we intimate? High needs to develop a conscious cultural list of protocols and explain kindly when they diverge from that and why. And be public about it. We are diverging from our protocol of this and this because we don't know what we're doing, we're overwhelmed, whatever, and we're called our team and no one can help on this. That's just how we're doing right now. Okay, now we all know where the weak points are and how to protect ourselves from those weak points. So this is a big cultural change that can happen. How does a participant deal with the fact that they're unsafe with a community member? So this is another big thing that I would like to see, the science and the tools that make the mission statement more than a shame statement of ineffectiveness, committed to people winning. So when a Tantra teacher in the community tells me they'd like to have sex with me as long as I don't tell their partner, and I have now been made an involuntary carrier of a disease of a secret that is hurting everyone. That person should not be teaching Tantra if they don't have integrity. Their partner should not be with them if they don't have integrity. And I call Penny at the high office and say, Penny, one of your colleagues in the office is being cheated on. What should I do here? I tried to confront them and they threatened me if I told their partner, because I said I'm going to tell their partner if you don't. Because I don't want secrecy. I don't think anyone benefits. I don't think they benefit. I don't think the partner benefits, I'd stay out of it. Is that the high protocol? Is that what office staff are trained to do at high? Why? Why? Does the data support that? Well, I think in many cases when there's no community support, it can and it does. I don't want to get involved with that. My life will be better. But what if it's on a community level? What if there's an alert? What if there's a team that trains to handle these types of breakage of integrity that is not about blame and attack? It's about understanding the wounds, the ignorances, what gets them going, and we're all growing. We're all growing. We're not hiding. We're not lying. We're not punishing one another. We're growing. See, I don't have an issue if someone wants to do a Tantra class with someone that cheats on their partner and they know that and they know how to protect themselves. Because our culture exaggerates faults and zeroes in on these things, and it's very hypocritical. So I think we need to mature and grow that there's no perfect human beings. But we need to know our own inadequacies, and other people around us need to know them as well, so that we can still love and be safe with our inadequacies. Everyone knows now. Peter hides blind spots with charm and protects them for dear life, even if it meant hurting a participant for years, and cannot be trusted to come back. He's not a bad person. The next time you think he has a blind spot, talk to Sarah about it. Bring it, at this stage, don't bring it to the high facilitators unless you want to be abused and, ignored and all this stuff. But bring it to the community. Put it on the app, bring it to light in some way and don't take it personally. It's not personal. It's just Peter's stuff. He deserves love like anyone else. You see all my stuff, I'm sure. Great. Is that a reason to punish and hurt me and deny all the things that I can contribute? For some, yes. But we all have stuff. And the more love and support we get to see it and actually heal it, it's not intentional. our nature is always born positive. If we're carrying sickness, it's injected and infected from this culture. And it just means we have not had the skill to bring ourselves healthy again. Are we dangerous when we're sick and contagious? Yes. But we don't shoot patients. It's a stupid policy to lock patients up, at $80,000 a year in prison if there is an effective way of healing. Many of the laws, whether like drug laws, are a joke. If we want to love ourselves and our community, we've got to find protocols that work. Not a protocol of being nice to Peter by letting this all go under the carpet, but not a protocol that's all about because it's proved it's punishable. I mean, this is a growth for all of us. I'm an American. I don't know what to do. The Thais show me so much more than I learn over here about how to handle this stuff. So I think part of winning is to invite the possibility that we each learn something and give and respond based on this. Like another way we could win is I invite each of you to join the Scientific Wellbeing Project. Spend 30 minutes for 30 days, document what you do on every day on YouTube and your result, and I'll stick it on the site. It's fun. Maybe I'll watch them and I'll learn how to, and it's a great project. It's so much fun. Thank you for watching.